I'm Natalie Beran, and I have had the honour of being on Keith Andrew Network today, having a bit of a chat, and I just want to say thank you. And he's doing a great job. He's got some really great people lined up, so if you haven't already, check him out on his social media. Also check him out on, I believe, Channel 2 on Saturday mornings, so you can watch the best of. Thanks, Keith.
Here with Natalie Beran. It's a real honor, privilege, have you as a guest. Welcome to the KeithAndrewNetwork.
Thanks, Keith. Good to be here.
No, likewise, the honor's all mine. For people who want to know what my talk show's about, the whole point of my talk show is to show people that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities, to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be. To prove to them and get them out to something. So hashtag break the labels. So that being said, it's got to be 26 minutes every time. Freedom of speech, self-expressing, PG-13. And starting off, the first question I want to ask you is tell our audience a little bit about your background and how you came to do what you do now.
Okay, sure. Well, I work in voiceover, and I came at it basically from a radio background. So I did communications at college, did my internships at different radio stations and things like that, including Talkback and, the pop station, giving away prizes as part of street teams and different things like that, and then sort of made my way into announcing and producing as well. So I really enjoyed that, and it's been really cool. I've worked for all sorts of different types of stations, from your classic rock through to modern, indie, top 40, ACR, talkback, different things, producing in the middle of the night and talking to all those odd people out there who are still awake at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, worked in radio for ages, so ended up doing commercials and voiceovers through work, and that led on to more voiceover. And I studied drama as well, so that's been really, really handy for radio dramas and podcasts and things. And just in the last couple of years, I've always been a big reader. I love reading. Have started to get into audiobooks as well. So that's been quite an interesting sort of technique learning curve, because you're narrating long form and talking for hours. So I think the first book I did in studio was like 350 odd pages, and we did it in 2 days, and man, I was tired at the end of it, because you're just talking.
Well, I guess we have that in common, because a lot of people would say, especially in my family, say I have diarrhea of the mouth. I don't shut up.
Yeah. So if you can talk a long time, then yeah, audiobooks are great. If you enjoy them, there's so many different kinds of genres, and non-fiction, fiction, all that sort of stuff. It's been really cool to do as well.
If you're interested, I would love to work with you if you want to ghostwrite my audiobook.
Ghostwriting I haven't done much of, but I have voiced some books that have been written by ghostwriters. So I don't know who the authors were, sort of a bit of a mystery behind them, but still quite fun. Yeah, quite fun to do that. And of course, you could voice your own audiobooks after you've written them. So
yeah, but I'm gonna be honest, I really don't like how I sound, so I always want someone to do it for me. Well, I don't have the best voice for it. Now, the next one I want to ask you, I'm sorry to throw a row. With everything going on with quarantine, you're based in England. How's everything over on across the pond? Well, across the ocean.
We were in lockdown pretty early on back in March, and that lasted quite a while. And then through the summer, we didn't really get to do too much because of all the restrictions and things on, and they really sort of encourage people not to mix and spread it. And then unfortunately, our levels have shot back up in the last few weeks. So we're back into second lockdown at the moment. So I have a couple of other part-time jobs as well, and just been working from home and doing admin. And we have my roommate, he does some voiceover as well. So we have a pretty good setup at home to be able to record at home, and hopefully the neighbors aren't being too loud or there's no works in the street or anything like that. So I think we've been pretty lucky so far to be able to kind of keep getting on with it.
Now, the next question I want to ask you is, because now you're in England, you can say anything you want. There's a show. You can say anything you want. What is your honest opinion about the election? Like, how's that in England?
Oh, wow. I don't know. We, of course, you can get a lot of information on social media channels and that sort of thing, but you have to be really careful watching out for all the fake news or people, basically freaking out about stuff and dramatizing things. And then I think if you're in the mindset to do a bit of your own research into how your election system works in the House and the Senate and how it all kind of comes together, it helps to understand it a bit more. Obviously, it's a completely different system to what happens in the UK. I'm from New Zealand originally, and we just had an election several weeks ago, and we have another completely different system as well. So I guess this year I've learned a lot about politics, and it's sort of interesting to see everybody's discussions and sort of the topics and the points that people really, go quite hard on, and just people's reactions. And I guess one thing that I'm kind of impressed about is that voter turnout has increased a lot, and I think probably just with COVID and the way of the world this year. In New Zealand, voter turnout and enrollment in the system was up, and of course in the US, it looks from our side, from our angle, that you guys had a lot more people participating as well, which I think is quite good, especially for youth voters who may not have voted before, minorities who may not have voted before, and then people who, probably haven't bothered so much, have actually kind of gotten up and done a postal vote or gotten to a polling booth on the day. So I think that's encouraging. Hopefully people are learning more about, how their own country systems run. Fingers crossed.
Oh, absolutely. Right now, everyone is so excited about Joe Biden as the 46th president, but that's the good news. The bad news is that we have a ticking time bomb in the White House, and during that 3 months, you really don't know what he's going to do, number one. I mean, a lot of people speculate he's got to start a war so they can't get him out. The other one is, maybe there's a rumor of flipping the election, so they got to give it to him. If that happens, the shit's got to hit the fan, number one. There's got to be, America will be cut in half. There's got to be a revolution. You might as well get the body bags out. But it's kind of like, in every generation, you're going to have a president that's, I would say, if you want to compare him to Nixon, at least Nixon got up and left. In hindsight, the Watergate wasn't that big of a deal. Okay, yes, Watergate was a big thing at the time, but looking back at it now, if he did it, it would have been, okay, not a big deal. But you have a giant-ass man-child who says, Mom, for an example, if we're playing cards and you beat me in cards and I say, you cheated. If we play Monopoly, you cheated. You can't, it's not good to have that mindset, because if something happens, like say in the UK, for that matter, if someone say, okay, one person won, the other person lost, like, well, you cheated. It's, you're setting yourself up for failure, but yet you have other people pulling the strings, like you said about social media, and that's another thing I want to talk to you about. Can social media make you or break you? don't read everything you can read on the internet. You know, Facebook is full of fake news. Unfortunately, YouTube is full of fake news. You know, then you have the monopolies of Google and Facebook of controlling what you read and learn. So those things should be broken up. There shouldn't be anyone that has a monopoly. Unfortunately, there's a lot of companies that do have monopolies and they like to pull the strings. Now, I know this is like a boring subject and I hate politics, but you know, with on going to a brighter note, with everything that you accomplish with social media, are you how okay, let me wrap up this one thing and pass it. You say to people you're a professional actress, you do voiceovers.
Mhm.
But with everything with social media being up in the air, saying fake news and not being real, how, and for me, for an example, I have a talk show. I'm trying to have well, I like to say I have a talk show about disabilities, but yet if you're on certain platforms like Facebook and YouTube, it kind of falls under the category of, okay, is this a real person or is this a scam that they made up? So with everything that you accomplish, have you ever came across anyone that said, oh, I saw your work, but I don't think it's real? Or have you ever been criticized over your social media?
Not that I know of. I'm a little bit light on using it. I use it to read things, and like Facebook, for example, is mainly if I'm involved in theatre shows or something, I use it to promote a show or something like that. And like the Facebook events thing, so you can invite people to shows or to watch a screening or something like that. But I people always say to me, "Oh, you should promote more," and I'm like, "Ooh, yeah, I will. It takes time though." So I've been pretty slack with promoting myself on social media. I enjoy Facebook for, you know, keeping up with friends and family and people that I've worked with around the world and things, which is great, and sort of seeing what projects people are doing. Twitter, I quite like the conversation aspect of it, but I find you can go right down the rabbit hole and comments and people just sort of bitching and moaning at each other a lot, and you can
Right.
sort of see when it starts to get into trolling categories. Um, and then Instagram, I haven't really used that as much. I've got friends who love it and, you know, use it all the time. But on the other hand, I really do like, you know, if people are taking photos and stuff. And I think during lockdown that was quite cool because the only sort of thing you could do was go for a walk around your own neighborhood kind of deal. So people were taking photos and sharing things that they've spotted in their streets and stuff. So I think that was a nice distraction. Um, yeah, I probably should use it more, and be a little bit more productive with, you know, promoting the projects and things that I do. Yeah, I don't know. I'll try it.
Now we gotta take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, there's a couple of things I do want to talk to you about, and then I'm gonna pass the show over to you.
Check. I'm Julie Brothers.
Jenna Curtis.
I'm Jenny Fine.
Hi, it's Mimi Chen.
Hi, my name is Ella George.
I'm Shauna Toth.
Hey guys, I'm Anastasia Everett.
Hi, this is Jackie Nunez. Actress Becky Days.
Hi, I'm Lily Rose.
There, I'm Saki Mieta.
Hi guys, I'm Alexandria Denise, and you're watching Keith Andrews' show. He's doing a terrific job. Make sure you like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more awesomeness.
Back to the Keith Andrew Network. I am your host, Keith Andrew. One thing I want to promote is the Keith Andrew Network 24/7. That's right. Keith Andrew Network 24/7. Anytime, any place, anywhere. You can watch the Keith Andrew Network on the computer, on the phone, eventually on the iWatch, you know, once I get the bigger screen for that. So, but you can watch it anytime, any place, anywhere. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all these great things. Also, for people who live in Manhattan, New York, every Saturday, 10:30 in the morning, Channel 2, you get to see the best of the Keith Andrew Network. Now, it's not really in order in being about, season 1, season 2. Most of my episodes aren't really that good, and the video quality isn't that good. A long story about that. I came a long way in 7.5 years. So on the weekends is the best of. But the first thing I want to talk to you about is people with disabilities. With everything that you accomplish, have you ever worked with people with learning disabilities? And are you willing to work with people with disabilities?
Yeah. In theatre, I've worked with people who have learning disabilities. Back home in New Zealand, I used to be a narrator for the Blind Foundation. So not so much a learning disability, and for anyone who subscribed to that, it was sort of low vision and blind people who wanted entertainment, but obviously just needed a slightly different way to access that or news. So yeah, I mean, that was really interesting for me, the processes on how to produce that kind of work, and just the sort of different things that we used to do. We had some people who would work on newspapers and reading the magazines and newspaper clippings and things. We did a whole bunch of stuff for kids as well who were vision impaired, so that was pretty cool. And then all the way up to just general interests like poetry and cookbooks and other genres that, if you were wandering around a library, you'd pick up and scan through. And then just learning the system that they use there, which is a daisy player. So that's a certain kind of system where people who are low vision or blind can, skip to the next chapter or find a page if they pick it up and put it down, that sort of thing. Or if they're following a recipe, can, scroll back 10, 30 seconds just to hear what the ingredients were or check the index, that sort of thing. So yeah, I found that really fascinating. It was cool.
No, absolutely. Now, the next one I want to ask you is, do you have any success stories?
Ooh, I think every little project is a little success. You've done training, you've done research, you've done prep, and to have something come to completion so people can enjoy it, it always gives you a little buzz. Makes you feel good that you've completed a project that people can enjoy. So whether it's I do a few drama characters for different podcasts and stuff like that. So having people listen to them and, enjoying it, reading the comments and stuff. And most of the stuff I've done hasn't been sort of controversial or anything. So I think I'm lucky that I haven't been trolled or, had to read bad reviews or anything, because they're all group collaborations. So I think if you've got somebody who's got the innovation and want to complete something, if they're getting paid for it or not, it's quite nice just to work with creative people and get to do something a little bit fun, a little bit different from the everyday. And then I guess other little bits and pieces along the way, it might be a commercial that I really enjoyed voicing, and you may still hear it here and there, or producing an audiobook for an author and they go, oh, I liked that, would you do the next one in the series, kind of thing. So that's kind of like, oh, good, great, I'm glad you did enjoy that and didn't pick somebody else. So it's just been kind of fun, and obviously any more projects is always welcome.
Now, what about the next one I want to ask you is, what is coming up on the horizon and where are you heading to next?
I am just about finished producing 2 audiobooks. One is a sort of sci-fi fantasy anthology of short stories. So that's been a lot of fun. A whole lot of different authors wrote short stories based on a theme, and they were given a theme, a character, and an event. So that kind of ties it all the way through the book. And once it's released, I'll ping you the link to it. Can't talk about it too much just yet. But that's been fun because they had a lot of different characters, a lot of different accents, and the stories were set in all different times and places. So that was super fun. And then you can probably hear it in my accent. I'm from New Zealand, but I do a little bit of Australian work as well. And I almost completed another book, which is set half in the UK and half in Australia. So just sort of recognizing the places and people that the book is about is really nice as well. And then I'm also doing just a fun radio drama podcast, which is like a spin-off of the Power Rangers. So I get to play the Pink Power Ranger, which is really cool. So I think episode 2 of this season is coming out soon on a whole lot of different podcast channels. So it's the Power Rangers, the others, because we're the new Rangers.
Yeah, sounds like fun.
Yeah, so yeah, fun projects. That's really cool.
Now, do you have a last question I want to ask you, and I'll pass the show over to you. That was the remaining time. Is how can our listeners get in touch with you? And let's see, let me rephrase that. How can our listeners get in touch with you? And what's the next step for them to get started with you?
Gosh, probably Twitter is the best way. Just because the projects that I'm doing, the people involved seem to tweet about it a lot more than I do, so I like and retweet. This is the lazy person's Twitter, I guess, but it's just at Natalie Beran. You can see on the bottom of the screen how to spell my name. Yeah, so ping me a message or follow along with the projects, because I do when episodes and things get released, I do like and share frantically. Another project I'm working on, which is slightly different for me, is I'm doing a little bit of directing for a radio drama series called Ragged Scratch, and these are short 10-minute plays, radio plays, and this is season 3. So I did voice something for last time, and I do production assisting on the series as well, but I get to direct one this time, which is pretty cool. And I believe that the season 3 is going to be released in just a couple of weeks. So not sure when my little piece will pop up, but they do 2 episodes a week over 6 weeks, and some interviews with the authors and the casting crew as well. So it's really cool. Ragged Scratch.
No, absolutely. Now, passing the show over to you, was there anything you wanted to know? Anything you want to talk about, promote? This is your time.
Well, I guess I talked about me and a few of the things that I'm working on right now enough, but just in terms of what you've been doing, Keith, how have you found lockdown? I guess is the big question everybody's asking everybody at the moment, because you're based in New York State, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so you guys had it pretty hard, pretty heavy early on, which just looked horrific from over here until we got it. So how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine.
Cool. Good.
New Jersey, the governor over New Jersey is a freaking idiot. He reopened everything, and then the crap hit the fan on that one. New York seems to be doing decent. There's some areas where it's booming, and some people where it seems to be normal.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not to talk about political things, but it's if you don't take it seriously, you're setting yourself up for failure. So it's like, it's trying to find the right words for it. I know what I want to say, but I just don't want to come off like an asshole. It's just saying that certain groups of people are hit harder than others, and there's other ones that I'll give you an example I'm talking about. I've been walking around with my my dad and my sister, and not a lot of people wear masks. They tell you it's common courtesy to wear a mask. So, but it's absolutely amazing seeing all these people that died, and numbers are really outstanding. And not saying it's wonderful or anything, but they're not taking it seriously. It's kind of like, what point of saying when will you wake up and say, okay, just wear a mask? And then you hear these stupid excuses. Well, I had knee surgery. And it's kind of like, well, that doesn't really stop you from wearing a mask. Or there's another one that says, I just had a mask. If you wear a mask, it causes corona. It's like, you get these stupid ass people. It's like the line from Addams Family. Who are you? Who moved a rock? You get these people that come out of the woodwork. It's like, until it happens to like the guy from New Jersey, it's not real. It's nothing. He finally got COVID-19, and now he's like, you know what? It is real. It is dangerous, and we have to take it for what it is. So, wait, you had to get sick for you to realize it was something to take seriously.
Yeah.
You can't fix stupidity, pretty much.
Yeah, we see that. We see a lot of people, they want you to wear masks. Well, it's kind of the law now to wear masks on the trains and the subway and stuff, or the tube here. And you see people sort of, they wear it under their nose, or they wear it around their chin or around their neck. And it's like that. That's not going to save you. like just, yeah. And I don't know, I guess I see all different age groups doing it. So you can't really say, oh, it's like young men or young women or old men or old women. And yeah, I guess people have got, exemptions if they're exempt or whatever. But if you're exempt from wearing a mask, then perhaps don't be in a crowded train, because you might get it from somebody else who, you hear about the super spreaders and the people who are asymptomatic. So they're just running around with it, but they don't know they've got it. So
I agree with you.
Pretty scary. Yeah.
Now, wrapping up the show, I do have a couple questions for you off the air. But wrapping up, the first one I want to ask you is, when I approached you to be a guest on my talk show, and I want you to be brutally honest. When I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what was your first honest opinion when you got the message? What made you say yes? And after being on the show, how do you feel now, and what do you recommend to other people?
Oh yeah. I guess I was kind of flattered, because in my own little world, I don't, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, I don't promote myself very hard out. So I was like, oh wow, someone to talk to who's found me out there in the world. So that was pretty cool that you're reaching out to people all over the place. And yeah, it's always great to talk about voiceover, and I appreciate your time and having a bit of a chinwag about that and other things too.
Wrapping up our interview segment, was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest, and I'm looking forward to part 2 down the road.